What's up, gamers? Hope you're doing well. Today we're taking a look at this guy here, the G Pro X Superlight. I've been saying for a long time now that the G Pro Wireless has needed an update, and the Superlight definitely delivers. I can't stress enough how much better this mouse is than the G Pro Wireless from a performance standpoint. So we have a lot to cover in this one, so let's get right into it. Alright, so the G Pro X Superlight has hit the market at $150, and the G Pro Wireless here has now been reduced to $130. The G Pro Superlight, though, is the lightest wireless mouse on the market. On my scale, I found that it's completely weightless. It does weigh approximately 20 grams less than the G Pro Wireless, as they've brought the weight down from 80 grams to less than 63 grams. In my intro, I mentioned they ditched all of the nice-to-have, so the weight reduction comes at a cost. They removed the option to make it a truly ambidextrous mouse by removing the ability to add additional side buttons. There also is no RGB to be found anywhere in this mouse, and the Logitech logo now is a matte silver, regardless of which color you choose. They've also removed the DPI switch, so now to change your DPI, you'll need to use the G-Hub software, which is a bit unfortunate because there's only one hub that I like to frequent. So that's what they removed. So let's talk about the improvements. Actually, the first thing I noticed, other than the weight reduction, obviously is the skates. The G Pro Wireless skates leave a lot to be desired. So this is a massive upgrade. The front of the mouse houses one very large glide, and at the bottom of the mouse, instead of having three individual sections, you notice it's just one large glide that wraps all the way around the housing for the dongle. And if you want even more glide, they did include a second puck here that's completely covered in another glide, and it is worth noting that it weighs the same. And although this is a big upgrade, I did find my skates to be pretty scratchy. Not only could I feel it, but I could also hear it catching on my mouse pad, which was frustrating. So after several days of scratchy skates, I decided to order some aftermarket skates. So I went ahead and I did order some core pads. However, as I was waiting for them to arrive, I realized I was starting to notice the scratchiness less and less. So I decided to keep using the stock feet. And after about 3 weeks, the scratchiness was pretty much gone. And now, honestly, I barely notice it at all. And the edges on the skates, they're not rounded, which may have led to the scratchy feeling. So if your skates are scratchy, just make sure you take a couple weeks to break them in, and they may smooth out for you. But one thing I do want to point out in regards to mine specifically is that this edge wasn't fully seated against the mouse. It looks like when they installed it, or when it was installed in the manufacturing process, it just didn't get a good seal there. So if I had to guess, it was probably this corner that was scratching. And another thing I want to point out is how thin these glides are. If you look, you can see that they are paper thin. So we'll see what the longevity is of these, but judging by how thin they are, you may have to replace your glides sooner rather than later. And the next improvement is the coating. And you can tell my old G Pro Wireless has some grips installed. I don't think trigger grips are necessary, but since I had them, I installed them anyway. So I did find the finish on the regular G Pro Wireless to be a little bit on the slippery side. However, on the Superlight, I really don't think you need to install grips, at least for me personally. I felt that the finish was just a little bit grippier. But if you do want to add grips, they do include some in the box. But I'm going to be honest with you, the grips they include feel pretty chintzy. They feel definitely on the shitty side. They're super thin. If I was going to add grips, it might not be a bad idea to look to see if there's some other options out there. Now, they did change out the switches here from 50M Omrons to 20M to avoid the dreaded double-click issues. I did have just one issue where my mouse 1 got stuck down, and I remember it clearly because it got me killed in Warzone, and I was losing my mind. I was so triggered. But that was on the first day, and it hasn't occurred since then. But to be honest with you guys, I am a little bit disappointed because there's better switches out there, and for the price, I'd like to have the best switches possible. The triggers overall still feel very similar to the G Pro Wireless, as they have roughly the same amount of side play and pre and post travel. So I'll show you guys the side play quick. So you can see it moves quite a bit side to side. And I'll show you here the pre and the post travel. So unfortunately there weren't a lot of improvements made to these triggers, but at least you don't have to worry about the double clicking issue. The side buttons on the Superlight are definitely more crisp and more clicky than my G Pro Wireless, but to be fair, my G Pro Wireless has a lot of mileage on it, and I find the buttons to be great on this mouse and the G Pro Wireless in both placement and feel of the buttons themselves. They stick out far enough that they're easy to actuate, unlike some designs where the buttons just sit a little too far into the shell. So that covers the good changes, but there's still the elephant in the room. You guys probably already know what this is, and it's the cable. Pulling the cable out of the box really brought me back to 2018. So the first thing, it's solid rubber. Okay. The second thing, it's micro USB, which wouldn't bother me, but oftentimes I charge my mouse while I'm playing with it if it happens to die. And I know this could be avoided by charging it regularly while I'm not gaming, but I'm just not that smart. Instead, I run it through my mouse bungee and just plug it into my mouse if my mouse dies. And with the Model Wireless, for example, I don't mind doing this at all because the Senate cable is a lightweight, super flexible cable, as all cables should be these days. But this cable, not only is it a pain because it's rubber, so it's heavy and it doesn't flex, but since it's micro USB, it also takes a long time to charge the mouse, which means I need to play with it longer. So I understand it's a minor inconvenience that can be avoided, but damn does this cable blow. And for a mouse this expensive, coming out of the end of 2020, I really would expect them to do a better job with this. Alright, so on the topic of that shitty cable, that kind of leads me into who this mouse is for. This mouse is going to be for people who don't really care about the nice to haves. They don't really care about RGB. They don't care if it's ambidextrous or if they have to use software to change their DPI. You know, I would argue from a competitive standpoint, you probably don't really want to change your DPI that often. If this is your use case, you probably don't care what the charging cord is made out of because you're not going to be using it while it's charging. So, and that's exactly why I love this mouse. I feel like Logitech knows its lane with this mouse. They're not trying to make the Superlight for everybody. They're just trying to make it for people who want the best competitive advantage possible. And it also leads me why I think they're going to be able to get away with charging $150 for this mouse. Now, do I think that's a reasonable price? Hell no. Not when you can buy a wired mouse for $50 or $60 that does the same thing, or you can buy something like the Model Wireless for $80. But like I said, I do think people are going to buy this mouse at this price because the reality of the situation is that if you want the best, or arguably the best wireless gaming mouse on the market, unfortunately you're going to have to dish out $150. So that's all I have for you guys in this one. Hopefully you found it to be helpful. Per usual, if you have any questions at all, hit me up in the comment section, and I'll talk to you guys sometime soon.